Welcome. Okay. Hello. Good morning. Good evening, gentlemen. I don't know if it's morning or evening anymore. Okay. All right. Let's get the show on the road. Hashem, thank you very much for joining us tonight for the learning of Parashat Shavua, Parashat Vayechi. We're learning tonight for the complete and speedy recovery of Mordechai Merdad ben Evelyn, of Shachar ben Chana, Shmuel Moshe ben Pnina, Rabbi Baruch ben Tzivya. Any other names you want to add? Ahu bat Nechamalea. Yael Chaya bat Shachnaz.
Shed ben Devora
and Rachel bat Shoshana.
Thank you.
All refuah shlema b'tov. Yes, we said yes. And all the Persians that are in Iran, that Hashem should protect them and keep them safe. And only good news for all of Klal Yisrael, wherever they are. Okay, so we have the beginning of the parasha. Yaakov Avinu asks Yosef to swear that he will not bury him in Egypt, but he says it to him in a very important way. He says, Simna yadecha tachat yerichi. He says, please do with me kindness and truth. And Rashi says, what does it mean, kindness and truth? It means true kindness, which means that you have to remember, true kindness, says Rashi, is kindness that we do with people who passed on, because you don't expect anything in return. And the Shlach Kadosh and others, the Sefer Charedim, they elaborate on this and they explain that true chesed is when you don't expect anything in return. When you do an act of kindness for somebody, the proper way to do that act of kindness is to do it without any expectations in return. I'm doing because it's simply the right thing to do. That's it. Whether you want to repay the favor one day, whether you don't want to repay the favor one day, none of that makes a difference to me. I'm doing it because this is the right thing to do kindness to you. The reason that it's the right thing to do is because we want to mimic Hashem. The word man in Hebrew is Adam. Adam has a root, Adameh la'elyon, which means Adameh, I will be like, I will try and make myself like Hashem. Hashem is the ultimate giver. And he gives, and never expects, because it's impossible, never expects anything in return. Meaning, the little that we can do, whether it's a mitzvah, like putting on tefillin, or giving tzedakah, or whatever mitzvah we're doing, is not possible that we can repay Hashem, so to say, for every time that he makes our lungs open and close. It's not possible to really repay Hashem for that. So Hashem is giving nonstop, giving. So when you give, if you do it in the same way that Hashem does it, that's really being like a Kadosh Baruch Hu. So the idea is to give without any stipulations, without any conditions, without any, just, I'm giving it. That's it. Finished. So that's the idea that Yaakov is telling Yosef, what you're about to do with me, which is you're going to take my body and bury it in Israel and not let it be buried in Egypt, that's true kindness, because it's not, there's nothing that I can do to repay you for that. It's a kindness without anything in return. And by the way, Rabotai, that really is how we're supposed to serve Hashem. It says in Pirkei Avot, it says, Al tiyub ka'avadim hamishamshim et harav al menat lekabel pras. Which means when you do a mitzvah, it's true that you're going to get a reward for the mitzvah that you do. Not just any reward, but tremendous reward, eternal reward, forever and ever and ever, never ending. But that shouldn't be the motivation, shouldn't be the reason that you do what you do. I'll give you an example. What would you say if you have, let's say, your mom calls you up and she says, it snowed over here and I need somebody to remove the snow from the driveway, right? So you go and you shovel out the driveway. And then, of course, what do? You knock on the door. You say, Ma, I took care of the whole driveway. And she says, thank you so much. You're the best. And then you say, that'll be $100. Right? That'll be $100. What do you mean? You would have hired people to come and do it for you, right? They would have charged you. So instead of you hiring them, you hired me. It's a big deal, $100, right? So if she doesn't take the shovel and slap you across the face with it, that's that something is off. Because for a person to have the audacity to tell his mother, you owe me $100 for the fact that I shoveled your driveway. So I mean, it's absurd. She should charge him for every time she had to, clean up after him. And, it doesn't work like that. Feed him, bathe him. What? The mitzvah is different. You already told what you're going to be paid. Good. You're right. A mitzvah you were told you're going to get reward. That's true. But the point is that should not be your motivation. It should be that you're doing the mitzvot out of acknowledging the good, out of hakarat hatov. That you acknowledge the fact that Hashem was so good to you. You have to stop and think about these things because we take things for granted. When you come out of the bathroom and you say Hashem Yatzah, you got to stop and think about all these things Hashem is doing for you. Hashem is causing everything is involuntary. Your heart is pumping, your lungs are inhaling, exhaling. These things, you can't take them for granted. There are some people that had it one day and didn't have it the next day. There are some people that, Baruch Hashem, their pipes inside, the esophagus, the trachea, everything is good. God forbid there's a hole for a second. It's a disaster. So, Hashem does so much for us. When you do the mitzvot, the mindset should not be the reward you'll get for them, but rather this is the least I could do for HaKadosh Baruch Hu after everything he's done for me. So he asks me to do whatever. I do it. I take lulav and etrog. I read Megillah on Purim. Shabbat is the most beautiful thing. I keep Shabbat. You're doing it because this is the least I could do to say thank you. If Hashem asks me to do something, of course, that's what I want to do. Now, that concept that we have to say thank you is so important that we actually got the title as a nation, even though we come from different tribes. Let's say you're a Kohen, you come from the tribe of Levi, right? Let's say you're from Binyamin. You don't come from you come from the tribe of Binyamin. But we as a nation get the name Yehudim. Yehudim means from Yehuda. Some of us are not from Yehuda, but all the brothers get the name Yehuda. They all get that name Yehuda. Why? Because the very essence of our nature is that we are different. We are able to say thank you. We're able to acknowledge the good that is done to us. We're able to admit that a kindness was done with us. That's who we are. That's why. What does Yehuda mean? What is lehodot? Lehodot means to say thank you, to acknowledge somebody did good for you. That's the very essence of a Jew. That's why all of us, even if we don't come from the tribe of Yehuda, we're called Yehudim nevertheless. You understand? We're going to go through the brachot dinner. We'll see that they point this out, but it's important to be aware of this concept. We're going to see it brought down through all the blessings. Okay, so what I would like to do is I would like to go through the brachot that Yaakov gave his sons before he passed on, which is important to talk about. Now you'll see a lot of them are actually criticizing his sons, but nevertheless, it's important to go through it to see what he has to say before he passes on. Now, it says that Yaakov Avinu famously wanted to reveal when Mashiach is coming, right? And it says at that point, he couldn't remember. That's why Parashat Vayechi doesn't start off in the Torah as a new paragraph. It starts off in the middle of a paragraph, which is kind of closed off. It's hard to find it. When they do Akba, it's like, hey, where is it? You can't find it because it's in the middle. Why? Because it says Yaakov wanted to reveal to his sons when Mashiach is coming, and all of a sudden he forgot it. We're not in control of what we remember and what we don't remember. There are malachim that are in charge. We want to remember. There's a malach that helps us to remember. There's a malach that makes us forget. And at that moment, Yaakov, he did not have access anymore. He wanted to reveal when Mashiach is coming. Hashem said, "No, I don't let." So therefore, he couldn't tell them when Mashiach was coming. Now he was worried. Why is that? Maybe it's because just like Abraham had Yishmael and Yitzchak had Esav, maybe Yaakov, one of my 12 kids, is also off, and that's why I can't remember. He thought that one of the children was a problem, just like there was Ishmael, there was Esav, so there's another one here that's a problem. And maybe that's why I don't remember when Mashiach is coming. So he was concerned. So the children, meaning the Shvatim, were around his bed, and they said to him, Shema Yisrael, listen Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. Meaning none of us are worshiping idols, none of us are doing anything bad. We are all believing in Hashem, right? So what did Yaakov respond? Right? He heard that. He says, "Blessed is Hashem's kingdom forever and ever."
So why we don't loud it every time?
Oh, very good. So Mr. Yaakov is asking, why don't we say it loud? Why don't we say it loudly? The answer is because the Gemara says we have a problem. If you look in the Torah itself, when Moshe Rabbeinu wrote the Torah, when Hashem dictated it to him, so in the Torah it says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Ve'avta et Hashem Elokecha. It doesn't say Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto over there. So we have a problem. Yaakov Avinu, he said it, but Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah didn't write it. So we want to be like Yaakov and say it, but we don't want to go against Moshe who didn't. So what do? We say it quietly. Understand? Oh, so you're asking a good question. You're asking, okay, guys, you're asking a good question. Very good. So everyone's asking, wait a minute, but on Yom Kippur we say it out loud. So the answer is there's another reason that we say it quietly. The reason that we say it quietly, in this reason, the Torah brings it down, is because of the fact that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shamayim to receive the Torah, he heard the angels praising Hashem. And he heard them saying this line, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. He heard them saying it out loud. So he took it back down with him. It's like somebody who goes, the Midrash says, like somebody who goes, is invited to the palace of the king, and he's in the palace of the king, and he sees some beautiful, beautiful piece of jewelry there that only the royal family has. He steals it. He takes it. He runs home, and he gives it to his wife. And he says, you see this? This is royal jewelry. You can wear it, but only at home. Why? Because at home, it's safe. They're not going to know that I stole from them. But if you wear it outside, they're going to know. That's bad news for us. So don't wear it outside, only at home. So the same over here. Moshe Rabbeinu ascended to Shamayim. He heard Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. He brought it back down. He told the Jewish people, I'm giving this to you as a gift, but you got to say it quietly. Because if you say it out loud, the Malachim will know that I stole it from them, and it's like poking a fight with them. You don't want to start fights with Malachim. That's no good. So therefore, say it quietly. But on Yom Kippur, we're on the same level as Malachim. So therefore, we could say it out loud. You understand? Why we're on the same level as Malachim? Because we don't eat, we don't drink, welcome. No, so Yaakov Avinu said it because he understood that this was something very important to say in honor of Hashem at that moment. I don't think it was here at Malachim, as far as I know. Okay, fine. So those are two reasons why we say it silently. There's a question: is there a difference between the two reasons? Like, for example, let's say, I'm going on some halachot just quickly. Let's say Friday night we say Ana B'Koach, right? We say Ana B'Koach Kizati Minecha. At the end of Ana B'Koach, it says Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, right? Do you have to say that quietly or not?
Yes, quietly.
So this is a beautiful nafkamina between the two explanations. If you say that it's because we don't want the malachim to hear us, right? So then Malachim shouldn't hear us even if it's ana bekoach. But if you say that it's a question of who do we say it like, Yaakov Avinu who said it by the Shema, right? By Shema, Yaakov said it, but Moshe didn't say it, so we say it quietly. Well, over here, it's not Shema, it's ana bekoach. So you could say it out loud. You understand? There is a difference between which reason you go with. Yeah. Okay.
Why didn't Moshe write it?
So Hashem dictated it to Moshe and told him how to write it. So it's really, min hashamayim that's how it's written. We put it in because Yaakov put it in, so we don't want to not be like Yaakov Avinu.
But Hashem didn't put it. Why don't we go with Hashem?
Yeah, but Yaakov knew what he was doing too.
You said people because we are fast.
Because we're like Malachim. Yeah.
Tisha B'Av we are fast. Why don't they
No, because Tisha B'Av is a day of suffering. It's a day of. It's not the same thing as Yom Kippur. Fasting doesn't make you like a malach. Fasting, but on a special time like Yom Kippur makes you a malach. You understand? It's not exactly the same as Tisha B'Av. Anyway, I don't want to get carried away over here, guys. So let's go through the brachot. Okay, let's go through the brachot. So again, Vayikra Yaakov el banav. So Yaakov called his children. Vayomer he'asfu ve'agida lachem et asher yikra etchem ba'achrit hayamim. He says, come and gather, and I will tell you what will happen with you at the end of time. Kikavtzu v'shimu, gather together and hear. Bnei Yaakov v'shimu Yisrael amichem, listen to me, Yisrael, your father. The Or HaChaim HaKadosh, actually it's the Shla Kadosh asks, why is it that he has to tell them to gather together twice? He says, He'asfu ve'agid alechem, gather together and I will tell you. Then he says, Hikavtzu, gather together v'shimu, and listen. He tells them to gather together 2 times. So I think it's actually the Or HaChaim. I'm not remembering which one it was. Somebody says that he's telling them gather together physically, but then it's not enough that you gather together physically. You have to also be united. No hatred, no jealousy, no competition between the brothers. He's telling them, you guys want me to bless all of you before you die? I need to know one thing, that you're physically together, that you guys are actually willing to sit down with each other, number 1. Number 2, I need to know you don't have any jealousy, any hatred, any competition. That's what he's telling them. Very important. Because he's saying, you want me to give you my blessing before I pass on? You want me to take care of you? And to do this, I need to know that amongst yourselves, you're good. Why? Because he goes on to explain the Shekhinah only rests on a people that's united. The divine presence only blesses a group of people that's united together. That's very hard because sometimes there are people that are very difficult. There are people that are very, very troubling. You have, even amongst the brothers, big fights. You had the story with Yosef. They were very upset at him. And Yosef at this point could be very upset with them. And there are issues. It's not easy. Sometimes you have issues with family. Sometimes family could be so hurtful. Sometimes a sister, a brother could do something to you. You can't believe it's your own brother or sister doing this to you. It's crazy. But that's what it is. But still, Yaakov is saying, all that aside, right now we're a family, we're united, I can bless you. Only if you remove all hatred from your heart towards one another. That's why he's telling them to gather together twice. First time physical, second in heart, that we should all be together. Now, first of all, the first one who gets the bracha is Reuven. He was the firstborn. Reuven bechori ata, kochi vereshit oni. Reuven, you're my firstborn. Now, the Baal HaTurim tells us over here, Reuven is the firstborn of Yaakov. Now, even before I get to that, look at what he says. Reshit oni. Rashi tells us, he tipa rishona shelo. Reuven was the first drop of semen that came out of Yaakov.
At what age?
Very old. Very old. He was like, I think he was 81.
Wow.
67, he left his family, right? 67, right? Plus another 14 in, yeah, I think so. It could be even more. It could be even older. I'm not remembering exactly the calculation. He was old. Could be that it was at 67 years old.
67.
Maybe it was 67. I don't remember exactly the calculation. But my point is, he was an elderly fellow. So now, the first time that he ever emitted semen was when he was with Leah, and that was, Rashi tells us, Shelo ra'a kerim yamav. He never had a nocturnal pollution, as they call it. He never had, a dream at night that caused him to nothing, zero. And that was his first time emitting semen. That was Reuven. Now, by the way, what?
When did he marry?
He married Leah after 7 years of working for Lavan.
At 67?
Again, I don't remember the exact calculation. Well, I'll get to you with Hashem later. But it could be he was in the 80s, I think. I think he was in the 80s. I have to look it up again. At any rate, guys, the point is that, by the way, before we move on, it says that did Reuven actually have a portion of land in Israel? Reuven got outside of Israel. But why? There's a very important thing over here to talk about, which is that, no, because when Yaakov was with Leah, he didn't realize it was Leah. He thought he was being with Rachel right now. So he was having relations with Leah, thinking that he's with Rachel. So that's a big problem. So says the Magen Avraham brings down that that's one of the reasons Reuven actually didn't have a portion in the land of Israel. He was on the other side of Jordan, which is very interesting. Now, if you look in, now Reuven, amongst other reasons, Reuven did not get the status of firstborn. Yaakov is taking away that status from him. Now, why is that the case? So what we remember is it says that Reuven went and had relations with Bilhah, his stepmother, right? Now, the truth of the matter is that that's not really what happened. Even though the Torah says that's what happened, Chazal explained, all it means is that Reuven removed Yaakov's bed. Yaakov, after Rachel passed away, Yaakov put his bed in the tent. Instead of Leah, he put it in the tent of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, because he liked Rachel so much that Bilhah was like an extension of Rachel. So he went to Bilhah's tent. Yaakov said, this is an embarrassment to my mother. Rachel is dead. You go to Leah, my mom, right? So he took the tent away from Bilhah, the bed away from Bilhah, and put it in the tent of Leah. So over here, Yaakov is telling Reuven, look, you were supposed to be the king. You were supposed to be the Kohen. You're supposed to be everything. Firstborn, you lost it all. You lost it all. Reuven, so Bechuriata, you are my firstborn. Kochi v'reshitoni, you are the first drop of semen that came out of me. Yeter said, Yeter az pachaz kamayim al totar. You acted impulsively. You know what that means? You didn't think. You didn't think before you did. Sometimes when a person acts out of impulse, he's upset, he's mad. This is a shame to my mother. You're disrespecting my mother. How could you do that? So I'm going to go and I'm going to take your bed and move it. What are you talking about? You're going to tell your father where he's going to sleep? With whom he's going to sleep? What do you have to do with your father and his decision about that?
Trying to protect his mom.
It's none of your business. Who are you? You understand? A person has to know his place. So if you stop to think about it for a minute, you say, okay, you know what? I'm thinking that this is wrong, but let me shut my mouth. Who am I? I'm nobody. I'm going to decide for my father. Do I know? Maybe my dad is mad at my mom for tricking him. Maybe my dad has an issue with my mom. Who am I to decide for my father that he should do this or he should do that? I'm nothing, right? So Yaakov is telling him, because you did that, So you lost everything. The truth of the matter is that you have to ask yourself, if Yaakov is blessing Reuven right now, what kind of blessing is this? Yeah. Where's the blessing? You want to know something? This is the biggest blessing for him, because there's no bigger blessing for somebody who should not be a leader, that he shouldn't be a leader. If you are not supposed to be a leader in Klal Yisrael and you become a leader, it's not good for you. You do bad. You're going to destroy everything. You act out of impulse. You don't think. It's not good for you to be a leader. This is the biggest blessing for him. Look, he says, I'm sorry, but you act out of impulse. You're not fit for the job. And that's why the Baal HaTurim says over here, if you do the gematria of Reuven, let's do the gematria. Reish is 200. Aleph is 1, 201. Vav is 6, that's 207. Bet is 2, 209. Plus Nun is 50, 259. It's the same exact gematria as Lo Bechor, which means not the firstborn. Lamed Aleph is 31. Bet of Bechor is 33. Chaf is 53. Vav is 59. Reish is 200, 259. Says the Baal HaTurim, in the name Reuven already, is that he's not the Bechor. He can't be the Bechor. You know what it means? You follow what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? Right? It means he's not the Bechor. Why? Because that was his failure, that he acted out of impulse and didn't think before he did something. Again, who am I to speak about Reuven, about the Shvatim? Nobody, but I'm just explaining to you what's being brought down over here. That's why he says, "Az chilalta yetzuli ala." You defamed my bed sheets. You moved them. Shimon veLevi achim klei chamas mecherotem. Shimon veLevi were the two brothers that destroyed the entire city of Shechem. He says, you guys took the blessing away from Esav. Esav is the one that's supposed to live by the sword. You guys decided to take that away from him, and now you live by the sword. So therefore, I don't want to be a part of what they're doing. And therefore, you know what I'm going to do? He says, I'm not going to let them live together. The tribe of Levi is the only tribe that did not have a portion in the land of Israel. They had 48 cities where they were able to live dispersed amongst the Jewish people, but dispersed. They're not united, not together. Every tribe of Levi, the whole tribe is all over the place. Why? So they shouldn't have that power to be together and to join up with Shimon and wreak havoc. Understand? He's saying, I'm going to divide them, he says. I'll spread them out through the Jewish people. Again, but that is a blessing. You know what? It's the same idea. Because if they're together, they could do damage. The biggest blessing for them, separate. Everyone's a tribe of Levi here, there, etc. That's why you have Kohanim over here, Kohanim over there, Levim over here. Everywhere you go, you have Kohanim and Levim. It's an amazing thing. Right? So, yes, you have a question.
So why did the Levi have his grandkids to be Levim and Kohanim?
Because it was beneficial in a certain way. In the same way that they were able to go ahead and fight and destroy a whole city, which Yaakov wasn't happy about. But when it came time, many, many years later, by the sin of the golden calf, for example, they were the only tribe that wasn't involved amongst the men. They didn't have anything to do with it. And they were the ones who picked up and said, yeah, you want us to kill people who did it? We'll do it. And they went and they used their sword and they killed everybody. 3,000 people. 3,000 people they killed. No, by the golden calf. Golden calf. 3,000. Okay, now, Yehuda. Yehuda, ata yoducha achecha yadecha be'oref oivecha yishtachavu lecha b'nei avicha. So over here, the Targum Yonatan says about Yehuda, ata yoducha achecha. It's a very, again, the Or Chaim HaKadosh says, look, you admitted to the story with Tamar. Yehuda saw that he's starting to rip his brothers. Yaakov is starting to tear into Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Yehuda started to back off. So it's not good over here. So he started to take a few steps back. So Yaakov says, Yehuda, don't worry, you're not like them. You're different. When I tell you that you did something wrong, you admit. You're modeh. Modeh means you admit. You're able to say, okay, I messed up, I did something wrong, and you do teshuvah. When Tamar stood there and said, who does this belong to? Right? Who's the one that owns the staff and the signet ring and all these things? Who's the father of this kid or these twins that are in me right now? You got up and said, it's me. Tzadka, mimeni, she's right, it's for me. So you admitted to what you did. Yaakov says, that's why you're going to be the king. That's why you're going to be, all the Jews are going to be named after you, Yehudim. Because we admit. When somebody does good for us, we admit it. We say thank you. When we do something wrong, we admit it. Modim, that's what makes us who we are. So therefore, says Yaakov, you're all going to be called Yehudim. Now the Or Chaim HaKadosh says something very deep over here. He always says very deep things, but he says something really fascinating. He explains that there are some times where when Hashem created the world, when Adam messed up, so he was, all the neshamot of all the Jewish souls were in Adam Arishon. When he messed up, certain sparks of neshamot went into the physical world, what we call the klipot. They were absorbed in impurity, in tum'ah, in things that are impure. And sometimes, he explains Kabbalistically, there needs to be a meeting between the Kedusha and the Tum'ah in order for the Kedusha to suck out whatever pure neshamot are inside of the Tum'ah. So for example, he says, you think that it was for no reason that Dinah was raped? He says, you know why Dinah was raped? When Shechem raped Dinah, he says Shechem had a very holy neshama inside of him. Him coming together with Dinah, Dinah's holiness was able to suck out that neshama from Shechem and bring it back to Kedusha. It says they told Yaakov and the family, you should know if you marry us, its arms are wide open for you. He says Rechavat is the same letters as Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion. Okay, Rechavat is Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion. That was the holy rabbi that was wrapped up in a Sefer Torah, and they put sponges of water on him that he should die a very heavy death, slow and painful, and they lit him on fire, and he saw the letters of the Sefer Torah flying up in the air. Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion was the one that was killed on Al Kiddush Hashem. He was a very holy and righteous rabbi. His neshama was stuck in Shechem. That's why Rechavat is Rechavat Rabbi Chanina ben Teradion. That's what they were hinting to. So by Dinah being with him, she was able to pull out of him that neshama. That's what the Or Chaim HaKadosh says over here.
So why did he deserve such a bad death?
What?
Why did he deserve such a bad death?
So, unfortunately, he was involved in the rape of Dinah.
How?
Because he was in Shechem. It was a part of Shechem. And everything it comes back full circle. It's wild. What? So, again, you're right. It wasn't. But again, Hashem has calculations for all these things. But my point is like this. Yehuda had the same thing happening. Inside of this girl, Tamar, were two very holy neshamot, Peretz and Zerach. Peretz would eventually be the great-grandfather of Mashiach. Al Yadish ben Paretzi. What's ben Paretzi? Right, we were praying for Mashiach to come back, right? And he's the son of Peretz. That's the son of Yehuda. Explains the Or Chaim HaKadosh, Yehuda, you were righteous enough of a man that in this generation your brothers would bow down to you. your brothers would admit you're the best of all the brothers, fine. But it would just be this generation. You needed to go through the story with Tamar because that was the only way that you could pull out those neshamot from her. In other words, the only way these neshamot would come into the world would be from relations between you and her. Because you, Yehuda, were the one that was capable of doing this. In the same way that Lot and his daughter produced Moab, right? And Moab was the grandfather of Ruth, right? And that was the only way for it to happen. You needed somebody on the level of Lot, who was a great person in the sense, like he was a student of Abraham, to be with his own daughter, to take out from her the neshama of Ruth and to bring it into the world. So too, Yehuda, had the whole story with you and your daughter-in-law not happened, there wouldn't have been Mashiach today. So you had to have that relationship with her in order to be able to pull out those two neshamot through this relationship. That's what the Orach Chaim is saying. So, Yehuda, right? You had enough as is to be the king of the brothers, but it wasn't going to last you a lifetime. Thank you. It wasn't going to last you forever. But now that you had the story with Tamar and you created these two children, Peretz and Zerach, so now you are the king forever, and therefore, Lo Yasur Shevet MiYehuda. For this reason, the only tribe, that's allowed to be the king of Am Yisrael is Yehuda. Shaul was from Binyamin, he lost it. The Chashmonaim were Kohanim, they lost it, right? But Mashiach is from Yehuda.
So it's like that.
That's why they're
Shaul.
What?
If Hashem know had to be Mashiach from the Melech.
Why is he come from Shaul?
Why he to Shaul?
So it's possible that Shaul was on such a level that he was able to do it, but he messed up with Amalek. What?
Shaul was from Benjamin.
I understand. So it's a good question. It's a very good question. Could be that Shaul was an exception, and that had he been on the path, he would have been able to hold on to it. However, Hashem said, no, you messed up with Amalek, didn't kill all the sheep, you didn't kill Agag, you lost it. You had a chance, but you lost. I hear your question. I know your question. It could be this is an exception to the rule. Okay. Now, we continue. Zevulun lechof yamim yishkon. The big question on this one is, who's older, Yisachar or Zevulun? Yisachar. Yisachar is older. And over here, who's getting blessed first? Zevulun. Question is why? Midrash tells us the answer is because Zevulun is the one that supports Yisachar. They had a deal, a 50-50 deal. 50-50.
You learn
50-50.
not 10-90.
Not 10-90. 50-50. That means that Zevulun, whatever he earns, he gives 50% to Yisachar, and Yisachar in exchange gives whatever he earns in Shamayim, 50% to Zevulun. It's a 50-50 partnership. So Yaakov blessed Zevulun first to show that if you wouldn't have Zevulun supporting Yisachar, there would be no Yisachar. Yisachar is learning Torah the whole day, but that's only made possible by Zevulun. So therefore he put Zevulun first. Now that's why the sign for Zevulun lechof yamim yishkon, Zevulun was import, export, right? He would go bring in different merchandise from overseas. He would export as well. He did everything by boat. Yisachar produced more than 200 heads of Sanhedrin. Yisachar chamor garem rovetz ben hamishpetayim. Yisachar decided to take upon himself the study of Torah, and everything he did had to do with how they're going to learn Torah. They produced more heads of Sanhedrin than all the tribes combined. 200 heads of Sanhedrin from the tribe of Yisachar, because they decided to be the ones that sit and study Torah all day. Dan Yadin Amo Ke'achad Shiftei Yisrael. Dan is going to judge the nation like the number one tribe in Israel. This refers to, says Rashi, Shimshon. There was a man many, many years later named Shimshon. Shimshon was from the tribe of Dan, and he was a very great warrior that fought lots of battles against the Pelishtim. Eventually, they realized that the source of his strength is his hair, and they cut his hair. What?
They made a movie.
It's possible, yeah. This woman, Delilah, she made him cut his hair. He cut his hair, he had no strength. And then they tied him up, they gouged his eyes, the Plishtim gouged out his eyes, and they tied him to the pillars of the building. And he said, he prayed to Hashem, right? Hashem, right? Please remember me. And he said, Tamut nafshi Plishtim, let me take down the pillars of the building so that the whole building collapses on me and the Plishtim, he says. I want to go down with them, but let me just take them down. And that's what he did. That's what he did. So Yaakov is praying for him at this moment.
Hey, Rabbi,
yes.
Which Torah they learned? Meaning, when you say Torah was given to Moshe afterwards. So which Torah they started learning Torah?
They learned this Torah. They had an understanding of certain spiritual reality, even though it wasn't given to them yet. They understood. Thank you very much. He learned in the yeshiva of Shem. Yes. Guys, let's finish the brachot over here. God gedud yegudenu. God means mazal. But God also is from the word gedud, which means a platoon. God was known to be a very, very strong army. And that's why when Moshe was criticizing them, they said, hey, you want them to go into the land and you're not going to go and fight together with them? You're going to stay on the other side of the Jordan? That's not okay. So God decided, no, of course we're going to go fight with them first, and then we come back home. But God's gedud yegudenu means they gathered together like a platoon. Now, they had strength. Me'asher shemena lachmo. Asher was blessed with the portion of land in Israel that had the best olive oil, and the best fruit. Asher. Now over here, Yeheh Asher Shamed. It says you should be like very, very fat. Lots of wonderful olives and fruit. Now, if you ever had a reason to learn Mishnah, pay careful attention to this. Me'asher shemena lachmo. Asher, the word is shmena. Shmena means very fat. His land is very fat. But Chazal say shmena can also be reread as Mishnah. Mishnah is very much connected to Asher. It says that when a person passes away, if God forbid he was sent down to the wrong place, God forbid, to Gehinnom, it says that Asher stands at the gateway of Gehinnom and asks the people that are going in, did you learn Mishnah? And if they say, yes, we learned Mishnah, Asher says, you don't belong here. He takes you out and he brings you up to Shammai. That's why Me'asher Shemena, it's a hint to the fact that Me'asher Mishnah, if you learn Mishnah, then Asher stands at the gate of Gehinnom and doesn't let you go in. Amazing.
Mishnayot or Mishnah from the Gemara? The same.
Mishnayot. Talking about learning Mishnayot.
Like the one from the Gemara.
That's a Mishnah, sure. That's of course. Okay. Naphtali ayala shilucha. Naphtali is very fast. Right? It says that Naphtali was super fast when Yaakov Avinu was buried in this week's Parashat. Esav came to stop the procession. He says, I'm the firstborn. I'm the one that's supposed to be buried here. And Naphtali, they didn't have the papers. Naphtali got up and ran like the roadrunner, right back to Egypt. He was as fast as an ayala. Now it says that Naphtali, it says he ran, but Dan had a son named Chushim. Chushim didn't hear, and he could barely. He was lacking senses. He didn't have certain senses. So he sees that the procession is being held up. This is my high. What's going on over here? And they tell him that Esav is holding up the whole thing. So it says Chushim took an axe and chopped off Esav's head, and Esav's head went rolling into the Merat HaMachpelah. It says at that point, Yaakov Avinu smiled. Even though he was dead, he smiled. It says in the Gemara, he smiled. Very interesting thing. But Esav's head actually did manage to get buried in the Merat HaMachpelah. His head was buried there. which is some kind of a zechut. The Gemara. Yeah. But at any rate, Naphtali, it says, is noten imrei shafer. Naphtali is very special because Rashi says, Hu yodeh al chelko amarim naim v'shevach. He will say praises to Hashem for everything good that he has. Now, of course, we have to finish off with Ben Porat Yosef. Yosef is a Ben Porat, which means he's a charming man, right? He has very great charm. Ben Porat ale ayin. He's very charming to the eye. Says the Gemara, Al tikri ale ayin ela ole ayin. He goes above the eye. That's why when we want to bless somebody, you should not have ayin hara. We tell him Ben Porat Yosef, right? Because Yosef was always above the eye of other people, above the evil eye. Why was Yosef above the evil eye? Who remembers? We talked about this many times. Because Yosef himself never looked at anybody else's stuff. He was never jealous of anybody, never desired what anyone else had. He had hundreds of opportunities to look at Potiphar's wife. He never looked at her. Never wanted to look at her to see how beautiful she was. Never. And she changed her wardrobe every day 2 times. Because maybe this will make him look at me. Maybe this will make him look at me. Maybe this. Never looked at her. So when a person wants to be protected from ayin hara, says Yosef HaTzadik, if you yourself are not jealous of others, measure for measure, Hashem will say, when others are jealous of you, I won't let their eyes touch you or harm you. That's why Yosef was protected. So this is all really an amazing thing. What? Of course, one more, of course, Binyamin ze'ev yitraf, babokir yochal ad, ve'la'erev yechalek shalal. Binyamin is like a wolf, right? Binyamin ze'ev hu yitraf. Nibal shiyu atidin liot chatfanin, v'chatavtem lachem ish ishto. So over here, Yaakov Avinu is actually giving a prophecy about one of the most horrific stories that ever happened in the history of the Jewish nation. This is the story of Pilegesh Bagivah, which is in the book of Shoftim. And there was a fellow that had a concubine. She wasn't exactly his wife, but apparently they had a very nice relationship together, almost like a husband and wife. And it says that one day she served him a soup, and he found a hair in the soup. He was very upset. So he gave it to her. He said, what is this? He started to yell, and he wasn't happy about it. She was very frightened. She was very scared. Some say it was a hair in a different spot that could have hurt him, God forbid. Anyway, point is, she ran home. She was very, very scared. She ran home. Now he realized that he messed up. He got upset at her and whatever. He went back to smooth things out. He goes to the father-in-law's house, talks to her, says to her, listen, come back home. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I won't do that again. He works things out. She leaves with him. They're on the way back home. They're leaving, and it's getting dark. They're now in the tribe area of Binyamin. And they knock on somebody's door. Can you take us in? We don't have anywhere to go. It's late, whatever. What happens is they hear in the tribe of Binyamin that this couple is staying by this guy's house. And they, just like in the story of Sodom, when everyone comes and starts to bang on the door, everybody starts to come bang on this guy's door. Boom, 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 boom. We want to see her. We want to get her. We want to see what's going on. Bring them out. The guy says, no, we can't do it. Anyway, the lovely husband over here, or whatever this guy was, he suggests, look, I've got this concubine. Go for it. Take her. They take this lady, and almost the whole tribe of Binyamin is with this poor girl the whole night. It says,
when is this?
This is in the time of Shoftim. So it says that, this is a terrible story. It says that the morning came, there was a knock on the door. It was this girl. And they opened the door for her, and she drops dead. She just drops dead like that. She died. Now, this guy, he was so shaken up by what happened. They decided to send her body parts throughout the whole land of Israel to show everybody what the tribe of Binyamin did. They acted like animals like that. So at that point, everybody couldn't believe what happened. They sent an official, message to the heads of Binyamin saying, listen, give us these guys to judge them, or we're going to wage war on your whole tribe. And they protected their people. They didn't send them. And then there was there was a civil war in Am Yisrael where all the tribes ganged up on Binyamin, and they completely destroyed the tribe of Binyamin with the exception of 300 men. They were only left with 300 men. And they decided not to totally wipe them out, just to let them die off like that. And that was like their final thing for the tribe of Binyamin. Eventually, down the road, they allowed people to start giving them their daughters that should be able to, have children again. But the point was that they nearly got extinct because of this story of Pilegish Begivah. So Yaakov over here is saying Binyamin down the road is going to be like a wolf that will go and do so much damage. Hashem Yishmor. And
so what blessing is this?
Yeah, he was praying that he shouldn't that this shouldn't happen. Also, it says in Rashi, he was also praying for Shaul, who later descended from those 300 from the tribe of Binyamin, that Shaul should be successful against the Pelishtim and should be able to fight against them. So, yeah, every blessing over here, guys, is loaded. But I guess we'll stop over here. Guys. What's that? Thanks for joining us on Zoom, guys.